Hello, good afternoon. This is Stacia Morphine. We would like to welcome you to the webinar series titled Journey into Indian Country, Entrepreneurial Opportunities and Cultural Tourism. Thank you very much for joining us today. The session that we are going to be covering is session 5 of 12, and today's session is titled The Path to Discovery, How to Conduct Market Research to Determine the Feasibility of Your Tourism Business Idea. This webinar, we will discuss how to conduct market research to identify your target market and competitors. You will also learn about the resources that exist to help you find information you need. You will learn what organizations within Indian country are available to you to assist in guiding you through the market research process. Again, Tats halach inam wanikwas kusnim kasknuat, soyapo wanikwas Stacia Morphine, Tats pa'ain. What I said is, good afternoon. My name is One Who Takes Care of Water, also known as Stacia Morphine. Welcome. I am owner and operator of Nez Perce Tourism LLC here in Nimiipuu Country. And Nimiipuu Country consists of a large, vast area, including, as we look at the map, Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, parts of Canada, Wyoming, and others. So my first slide consists of a reminder for all of us to remember who we are each day. And I have a consistent reminder, especially as I look at my daughter and who I am and where I come from. And I try my hardest to instill my cultural values from all sides of my family into her so she knows exactly where she comes from as well. So on the left side of the screen, there is a photograph of a Nimiipuu spokeswoman, is the title of this photo that I got from a newspaper clip. And her name is Lizzie Cayuse. And she is a woman that comes from my grandfather's side, the Redbird side of from my father. And the Redbird band came from the Snake River area, from the Snake River all the way down to the Salmon River near the Shoshone-Bannocks. And so that's a large area that the Redbird Band was responsible for. Now on my grandmother's side, on the left-hand photo, you will see a picture of Pile of Clouds. He's the Nimiipuu spiritual leader. And again, Pile of Clouds, that comes from my grandmother's side, June Green Stewart. And so I'm very fortunate to know my grandparents and their ancestry and their lineage. And each side of my family on those bands, they have different cultural values and beliefs that we were able to instill not only in my family but also in my business aspect. And so looking at the territorial homeland of the Nimiipuu, you can see that it's a very vast homeland. So when it comes to cultural tourism, we have a lot of coverage and some great resources that we can fulfill through our river systems. Now, if you think about it, historically, our river systems are our current day highway systems. You know, historically, we used our rivers for trade, commerce, travel, hospitality, and so we still use those same river systems today for the very same thing, for trade, tourism, hospitality. As we get into this webinar series, you will see some of the target markets through the market research that I particularly focus on through Nez Perce Tourism. I would also like to thank my guest today. Her name is Lynn Wilson. She's a micro enterprise specialist for the IDRS Acorn project. And her and I have worked on a few things together. And just in this last year that we've known each other, we have made some major strides in collaboration and partnerships, specifically surrounding Indian country. So market research is the process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data about your target market, customers, consumers, competitors, and the industry as a whole. Market research is a time-consuming but vital for any small business or entrepreneur. I took my time in this area of research. I took 2 years to be exact. And an example of market research for me would be I not only went online, reached out to some of the partners and collaborative folks that we'll mention here in a bit, but I actually went to do site surveys. I facilitated and met where the people are at, exactly what they're doing, where they were coming from. So as we go through the webinar series, you'll know that one of my major target markets is the river cruise boat market. And they bring about 30,000 plus individuals in our area every year. So what's really unique to us is that through the market research, I've learned that the LC Valley, Nimiipuu country on the Snake and Clearwater rivers is a place where we are the ending point and or the starting point to a 7 to 10 day journey for a huge river cruise lines. So there's 6 different ships that come here to this particular area starting March all the way through the middle of November. And these folks are thirsty, they're hungry, they're determined to meet the Nimiipuu people. And so by doing the market research, we've noticed that the cruise lines are selling the Lewis and Clark experience. But what a lot of people don't remember is, Nimiipuu had a big significant impact on the Lewis and Clark expedition. And so we can kind of get into that. But the real hardcore history buffs know that Nimiipuu played a vital role in their success. And so we can get into a little bit more detail about the market research that I performed specifically for the American Cruise Line and other boat opportunities that come through the LC Valley. But with that, I would like to go ahead and turn over this next slide, series of slides over to Lynn Wilson. Lynn, are you there?
Yes, I am here. And excuse me, I'm going to have to catch my breath. Nothing worse than getting ready to start a webinar and your computer says it's almost dead. And then you have to go running and searching for your power cord. But I found it. We're good. Okay, so as Stacia mentioned, today we're talking about tourism market research. So I really want to start, actually before I start that, I do want to warn everyone that we are having some bad weather in Oklahoma today. So if for some reason my internet gets disconnected, just know that's what happened and we'll have to reschedule the webinar. But I think we're going to be okay. So I want to talk about the 2 types of market research. The first type is primary research, and this is research that you actually conduct yourself. So in other words, this information doesn't live anywhere. I mean, you're going to have to go out and seek that data. And then the second type of market research is what we call secondary research. And this is research that really people have already done, so you're just going out and collecting information that already exists. Now there's 3 types, or what I consider 3 levels of market research when it comes to the tourism industry. And the first being a very broad, general market research. So, we're talking about like global and national information. And then you kind of get down on a second level where you're getting market research information that is more focused on your specific state or region. And then finally, the third level is really that niche market research where you're really getting down to your specific area, your county, your city, and finding information that exists for tourists that visit your specific area. Okay, at this point, I'm going to actually take us over to the internet because I think it's good if you can see some of this market research data live. So give me just 1 second to get switched over here. Okay, there we go. So at that, when I was talking about the global and national level, this is an example of that. So this is the National Travel and Tourism Office at the government level. And you can see, actually, as all government websites are, they're really pretty ugly. They're not really laid out to be all that user-friendly. But you're going to see here that the National Travel and Tourism Office collects a ton of data about, not only travel out of the United States, but a lot about travel into the United States. And I'm not going to go through all of the information that they show here, but I want to show you some of the key highlights that you can find on this website. One of the first being market profiles of overseas visitors. And I think this is really useful so you get an understanding. If you can figure out which overseas market is coming to your area, you can go to one of these profiles and learn a little bit more information about, as Stacia mentioned, your target market. So I'm going to open up here. Stacia, are you seeing an Excel file report? Let me see. Hopefully everyone is seeing this. So this is actually a market profile report for Germany. And you can see here it has a lot of information about specifically travels from Germany, what their spending is, their visitation trends. If you go down here, you'll see some tables that has a lot of information on exactly like why are they traveling? Is it for personal travel? Is it for education related travel? So I just wanted to let you take a look at that. And again, I know the government, they put stuff in a way that's not very pretty, but the information is there. You just have to sometimes sort through it and look at it in a different way. The one good thing I really do like about this website is because it's honestly the only place, this is where data is actually, any data you're going to find out there is probably going to stem from this website here. And so if you were to scroll down, you'll see a link here that says visit a Native or American Indian communities. And I'll open that up here for you. So this is information specific to Indian country. So this tells you about, how many people are visiting Native communities, what they're visiting for, are they here on, holiday vacation? Are they in because they're going to a convention or, conference or a trade show? So, it has some really good, useful information in there. And I really do like it because it is very specific to Indian country. And you can see here, here are the activities that people participate in while they're in a Native community. Scroll down here and see what else we got. Just some more traveler characteristics. This is port of entry. So most people that are visiting Native communities, these are the airports that they're coming in through whenever they enter the United States. And you can also see here that they also do a survey of international air travelers, and the questions and answers to those are available. I think this right here just lists the questions, but I think you can contact their office and kind of get a rundown on what those survey results were. Okay, so that's the U.S. National Travel and Tourism Organization. Then we're going to move on to the U.S. Travel Association. So there's a lot of travel and tourism associations out there, and this is the biggest one here in the United States. And it's a good place to also get research too. So one thing I'm going to tell you is that, the information that you're going to find here on the U.S. Travel Association site is honestly information that they're getting from the other site that I just showed you. So that's why I said all statistics, that are gathered about tourism in our country is really gathered at the government level. And then associations like the U.S. Travel Association takes that information and reproduces it. So it's, it's not necessarily information that they're gathering. The thing that I really like about going to associations to find research is that they make everything really simple to understand. So I showed you a minute ago that some of the information you could get from the US site. Well, the association site, as you'll see here, really puts things in a much easier to read, easier to view, easier to analyze view than what the government site does. So it's going to be the same information. It's just going to be laid out in a different way that honestly is going to be more user-friendly. They also have, this is the other thing to remember about associations. A lot of associations are going to have some type of market research available at no charge. So, anyone that's not a member of the association can usually go to an association website and find some kind of market research information. But there's a lot of more in-depth market research that sometimes these associations have, and they make it available only to members of the association. So be aware of that. But usually when you go to an association website, if you'll just go to the research tab, you'll look through here and see that there's a lot of information available for market research. Some of it is going to be free. Some of it you're going to have to pay for if you're not a member of the organization. Okay, so that was kind of like I said, the broad high-level view. And IANTA actually kind of falls somewhere in between being, kind of broad and niche at the same time, because the information they display and the research they do is focused on Indian country, but it's focused on Indian country at a national level. So I'll just take you through their site. Again, IANTA, a lot of the information that they're gathering is also coming from the federal level statistics that are gathered. And then they take the information and they put it into a format that is just a little bit easier to read and obviously very much more specific to Indian country. So here's, an example of one of their reports. I will say that IANTA is trying to do some research on their own. So for instance, the other day I got some information from their website, and I think it's maybe in my slides, so I'll show it to you. That they are trying to track the number and types of tourism related businesses in Indian country. So that's just some of the, the research that they're trying to gather. So they're always trying to find out as much information as they can about tourism in Indian country and making sure and sharing that through their website. Okay, now we kind of get down to that second level of market research that I was talking about. And so this is really going to be probably organizations and state websites, that focus on your state or your regional area. And I have, for instance, the Oklahoma Travel Industry Association website pulled up here. And again, if I were to go over here and click on resources, yes, there is some really good market research information available. And this one that they put together was actually the economic impact on travel in Oklahoma counties. And I actually used a lot of this information because I did a market or a feasibility study for my tribe for the Cherokee Heritage Center. And so I actually found some really good, useful information within this report that I was able to use. So definitely go out and check your state travel and tourism sites as well. I'm just going to scroll through here just so you can kind of see what some of this information looks like. And I know, here's the thing about market research is it seems really technical. It's a whole lot of numbers, and quite honestly, it can get overwhelming. So I didn't want to get too deep into it today. So we're kind of just doing really a broad overview because I could show you different resources for market research all day long, that are really cool and really interesting. But then I would leave, you would leave the webinar feeling really overwhelmed. So that's why I just kind of want to show you like what sources are out there and available, because the good thing is that there's people like me that if you need help, that's what you need to do, is probably find someone that is familiar with market research and get some assistance from them. I'm going to move on now. So here is the Convention and Visitors Bureau for Calaveras County there in California. And CVBs are really great places to find some information about your very local region. So this is at the county level. And I will say that not all CVBs, provide research publicly. So for instance, I was actually looking on the website for Humboldt County in California on their CVB website, and there was no kind of market research information available. However, I'm sure that if I were to contact their office and was looking for something, hopefully they would have some research that they're gathering in the background that they're just not posting on their website. But Calaveras County actually does a fantastic job of providing market research. And again, this is something you don't have to pay for. This is free on their site. So I want to open this up and just kind of let you get a little bit closer look at what some of their research looks like. So you can see here, if you were a tourism business, being able to come and look at this resource, if you were an entrepreneur living in this community, this is a great place to look at some research and some data concerning visitors to your community. It gives a lot of tips in here too, I think, for, small businesses, to help them with their social media marketing. And I absolutely love this. This is one of my favorite things that they've done, is they actually keep track of, who the visitors are coming in. I think this is actually information that was coming from the state level, but you can see here where the visitors to California are originating from. And you can see it down here in a chart view. So this is a really good example of secondary market research. It's research that someone has already put together. All you have to do is find it and be able to utilize it. Okay, now finally we're going to get down to the final level, and this is where I was explaining that this, some of these resources that I'm going to show you now are really more for your local community, getting probably even a little bit more narrowed down than, the CVB website that I just showed you. So this is the Cherokee Heritage Center. And if you were to go to the Cherokee Heritage Center website, you would not find any market research data. You're not going to be able to look on there and see, well, how many people are visiting the Heritage Center and what time of year are they visiting. But you can go to any, if you have museums in your community, any kind of public attraction, typically those organizations or those kinds of businesses are keeping statistics about their visitors. And usually they're pretty willing to share that information with you. So that's what I would suggest, for a tourism business, is to really start at your local community level. Those other research sources, like the U.S. Travel Association, and some that are covering more of the national tourism statistics. That's great information, but as an individual Native entrepreneur, it may be more useful for you to start at this very basic level, which is looking at the tourism information that applies to your specific community. So again, think about all the different tourism places that are located in your community. Go to those people and see what kind of statistics they can share about the people who are visiting their location. There is, this is probably, I should have maybe put this up in the beginning when we're talking about the really broad, high view look at the tourism industry. But I did want to show you that there are some industry reports available. The company that I really like best is IBISWorld, but unfortunately it's extremely expensive to get information to buy these reports. So I can't afford to buy them. However, the local small business development centers have a subscription to IBISWorld. So all you need to do is go to your local small business development center, let them know what kind of industry that you're in, and let them know that you're interested in getting a market research report. I don't think they can just hand this report to you because of their license that they have, but they can pull information out and give it to you. They just may not hand you a full report. But that's going to be, I always find it to be really useful information. One of the things I really like to do whenever I'm looking at market research reports for an industry is to look at some of the things like, what are the trends? What are some of the challenges that this industry is facing? And by reading these reports, I usually can get a really good idea of how to develop a marketing strategy to reach these kind of people. So that's where, I think the industry reports come in really handy. I'm going to switch back over here now for a second. Get back to our slides so I can continue showing you some other things. Okay. So when I was talking about getting some information from, places like your local, museums, this is an example of some information that I got from the Cherokee Heritage Center. So even though they don't make it publicly available on the website, I was able to go to them and get this information. So this is what they gave me, an example of what they gave me. They actually collect a lot of data, but this specific table shows you the number of guided tours that were done through their living village there. And the reason I have that yellow row highlighted is because I want to point out that whenever things are put into a table format like this, it's impossible to just look at it and be able to analyze it very easily. Things that are put into a table, if you're like me, I just look at it and I just see a bunch of numbers and it really is not connecting in my head or making sense. But I pointed this out because this is actually showing a huge deviation in their information, and it points a red flag out to me. But I never caught this by just looking at the table. So what I suggest you do is whenever you get information like this that's put into a format that's really hard to analyze, is you turn it into a format that's easier to analyze. So this is the exact same information that's in the table. All I did was put it into a line graph. So that big deviation that I talked about, that you can't really identify it in the table format, once I put it into a line graph, I can see right here that deviation. And I'm going to give you some pointers here. Whenever you're looking at any kind of data over a period of time, so for instance, this is over a period of 2016, 2017, and 2018, especially in the tourism market, right? Because there's kind of a seasonal curve to it. So anytime you're looking at data over a periods of time like this, they really should follow a pattern. There's going to be a little bit of deviation, but overall, you're going to kind of see a similar pattern from month to month. So whenever you see something like this huge dip here that it's showing in May of 2017, you have to ask yourself, whoa, what's going on? Why is it doing that? So when you see stuff like that, you may have to contact the source that you got the information from and say, hey, I noticed this. Can you tell me what happened this month? I mean, was the Heritage Center closed for some reason? Did you guys not do guided tours that month? And find out why that deviation is there, because you probably need to just end up ignoring it. I don't remember what the explanation was for this, but I do remember that I just discounted this information and act like this specific point wasn't part of my, valid part of my analysis. So here's another example. This is some information I pulled from IANTA's website. So as I mentioned, IANTA is really, trying to do their best to collect as much information from tourism-related businesses, that are specifically located in Indian country. And so this was a graph that I pulled out of their annual report, and that just explains the types of tourism-related businesses in Indian country, along with the percentage of the businesses that there are. Hope that makes sense. I think it'll make sense to you when I show you here in a minute. But again, whenever I look at things like this, pie charts really are not very useful when you have this many slices of pie in a pie chart. So when I was first looking at this, I was like, oh, that's interesting, but I couldn't really analyze it very well because our human brains can't look at information like this and make very good sense of it. So this is another instance where I had to take the information and reformat it into a way that I could analyze easier. So same information. Now, when I took this information and put it into this more like a bar chart, then things really I started noticing some things. I noticed that, golf courses only make up 6% of tourism-related businesses in Indian country. That doesn't sound right, especially when you have, guide tours at 8%. Because I think there are probably a lot of native tribes that, they don't do tours, but my goodness, now with casinos, almost if your tribe has a casino, you almost surely are going to have a golf course. So I started looking at this information thinking this, some of these just don't make sense. So I contacted IANTA, and she did explain, yes, that does not represent all of Indian country. They rely on tribes to self-report to them. So the information that they have to go on means that it's only information that tribes have offered up to them. So it's definitely not representative of Indian country as a whole. So those are just some things that you really have to pay attention to when you're collecting, data from different organizations. Make sure you understand what that data means, what it represents, because sometimes, and not that they didn't mean to, they actually put it, in here that it's updated with input from individual tribes, but I didn't realize still that meant that this was not representative of all of Indian country until I got that clarification from them. I'm actually
I saw a slide and that was my cue.
Internet here for a second. Stacia, did you need me? Okay. Well, I noticed some slides did not get transferred over to my presentation, so hopefully the way I'm going to show it to you here works. Whenever you're doing research, I think what you're probably going to find most useful is to conduct your own research, primarily through surveys. So I did a survey at the Cherokee Heritage Center of people who were interested in three things. I was trying to determine, are people interested in like overnight immersion experiences? Are people interested in coming here and learning how to actually play Cherokee games? And are they interested in doing things like hands-on other cultural activities, like maybe basket making? So what I did is I chose our annual Cherokee holiday, which is at the beginning of September, and that is probably the busiest time for our tribe. So we have people coming in from all over the world for our holiday event. So I went to the Cherokee Heritage Center. I set up a table right there at the entrance, and I started surveying people as they came in. And I actually hired my son and made him go around with the clipboard and start, asking these survey questions to other people, because there was more than one entrance and I couldn't catch everyone. And I have to tell you, it was an exhausting thing. So I know that, whenever you're out there and you're trying to do primary research and gather all this data yourself, it's very time consuming. It can be very exhausting, but this is honestly where you're going to probably get the best information. So through that survey research, I was able to determine that, 53% of the people that visited the Heritage Center that day were interested in overnight immersion opportunities. Like they want to come and stay and live maybe for a weekend like the Cherokee did, pre-contact. I learned that 43% of the people wanted to be able to learn how to play Cherokee games like marbles or stickball. And 85% of those people wanted to have the opportunity to participate in other cultural activities like making baskets, beading. And that really was a good eye-opener. So these are some opportunities that Native entrepreneurs in my community have, because some of these opportunities exist a little bit. We do have a lot of cultural workshops that people can go to learn how to, make baskets and make moccasins. But I don't really know of any place that a visitor to our, Cherokee communities can go to learn how to play stickball. And there's definitely not anywhere where they can go to get some kind of overnight immersion experience and learn what it was like to live as a Cherokee before the Europeans came. So you can see here how doing surveys and collecting that information yourself can really open your eyes up to opportunities that exist, whether it's for a new business or for businesses like I know we have Jaslyn DeGay on the line, who has already a very successful tour operating business. But being able to interview your customers, see what it is that they're looking for. Is there something else that your tourism business can offer that people want? And doing it through the survey method is a great way to do that. Another great yet unconventional way to learn about what people are looking for in regards to tourism when they come to your community is to go to TripAdvisor. So, I have to travel, quite a bit for my job. So every time I'm going to a community, this is the first place I come to because I want to know, what is there to do in Bishop, California? I've never been there. So I go to TripAdvisor. And TripAdvisor is the number one place, I'm telling you, that people who travel go to learn more about the community that they're visiting, to learn more about what there is to do there. So I would encourage each of you, to go to TripAdvisor, pull your own community up, see what's listed and available, and actually go through and read the reviews. Because what you'll end up finding is, maybe you're like, well, there's already I'm going to pick on Jaslyn. There's already a canyon tour operator, so I'm not going to open that kind of business, but maybe that tour operation is not really meeting their customers' needs. So there definitely is room in the marketplace for someone else to come in. So again, TripAdvisor, and I would like to suggest that anybody that does have a tourism related business, please make sure your business is listed on TripAdvisor, and then do everything that you can to get people to leave reviews on TripAdvisor. So I was actually doing a training up at the Klamath Tribes, and while we were up in the area, my son and I decided to go zip lining. And the company that we chose, whenever we got done, our two guys that took us zip lining said, asked everyone, please, when you leave here today, please go to TripAdvisor, leave us a good review. It really helps us as a company. Make sure you mention our names because, we get special recognition from our boss, when people are bragging on us. So I've gotten that at several different places I've gone. So again, go there, make sure your business is listed, and then do everything you can to get reviews. And it's really easy just to ask the people that are on your tour whenever they get done, just to get on their phones real quick and leave a review for you.
Okay.
Okay, Stacia, that's it. I'm going to turn back on the PowerPoint and turn it back over
Kasiayo,
to
thank you,
you.
Lynn. So,
Does
yeah,
anyone
I
have any
was taking
questions? I'm
notes on a
sorry.
few different
I
things.
didn't think to ask if anyone
So
had
thank
any
you for that
questions, but I don't
information.
see
As
any in
a
the chat
tribal
box.
entrepreneur, I mean, we're continually learning new research methods, reaching out to new resources. And what's great about it is that a lot of them are free of charge. And all you have to do is take the time and understand how important market research is. I mean, it really is time consuming, but again, it's so vital for any small business or entrepreneur to make sure that you set a time to do this. And again, I dedicated 2 years to be specific of market research to Nez Perce Tourism before I even opened my doors, and that was last March 29th. And so here in a couple of months, I'll be in my 1 year anniversary. But I feel like I've been in the industry for far longer because of that market research that I dedicated myself to. And some of those resources that were helpful from a micro standpoint were my local and regional resources. But market research, really helped me identify what business opportunities were out there. So after you've done your market research, it'll be clear to who you want to reach out to, which obviously is your target market, and where you can reach them. That's your marketing channels. And for me, I was able to prioritize my strategy based on the market research that I did. So I was able to form partnerships with other businesses. We talked about this in our last webinar. So for more information about developing business partnerships in Indian country, go ahead and navigate to the IDRS Acorn Project website. And there's a tab on the top right side that says recorded webinars. And you can go through those and find some very interesting topics and points that will just help you with your whole tourism business planning process. So I was able to make some substantial and financially risk-free partnerships based on the market research. And these have become mutually beneficial, not only for myself and for my partners, but most importantly for our customers and our community. Our tribal communities are benefiting from not only the jobs that are created, but also the narrative inside those positions. Our people are very knowledgeable, and they're able to confidently share this knowledge in a way that's communicated both to our customer, and to their families internally and their friends. So there's a huge positive ripple effect that happens when we share cultural information with each other. Another thing that I was able to do through my market research was create profitable bundling packages. I knew what other products and services were already happening in my area, and I was able to put the cultural twist on similar tour services that folks weren't getting. And so it's all about that authenticity that our guests reach. They could come to the LC Valley and get a jet boat trip from a 3 hour to a 3 day if they wanted. Same with rafting. You could come to our area and you could have a 4 hour rafting trip to a 4 week rafting trip if you want. But the key element that's missing is that authentic cultural component that people are wanting. And that's what we as Indian people have to offer, is that authenticity that you can't get anywhere else in the world. You can't come to Oklahoma to potentially reap an authentic Niku Nez Perce experience, and vice versa. I can't go over to Cherokee Nation and or they can't come here and expect the same thing. So each of our individual cultures, whether it's tribal or not tribal, has something very valuable to offer guests. So looking at the market research resources on the screen, you can see that visit LC Valley, Gateway to Hills Canyon. That's a huge resource for me. And Michelle Peters is one of my best mentors that helped me through this whole business planning process. Along with Visit North Central Idaho, Visit Idaho, Idaho Commerce, the National State Park Systems. We have 27 sites within Nez Perce National Historical Park that are allocated sites for visitors to experience and explore. Of course, IANTA, I'm a member of them as well. So if you're a tribal entrepreneur or a tribal department business related to tourism or economic development, it would be nice to go and check out their website and see what they have to offer as far as membership services. And they're highly ahead of the game as far as the international versus domestic traveler. And so it's really neat working with some of those hospitality advocates and ambassadors who have been in this game for a long time. Also, more closer to home, I guess you could say, I work with Visit LSU Valley Chamber of Commerce, the Port of Clarkston, and the Port of Clarkston is who offers me the river cruise boat itineraries and booking dates. So from here to Astoria, Oregon, which is at the mouth of the Pacific Ocean, there's several ports along the way that these bigger river cruise boats that I mentioned earlier stop at. And so having a relationship and knowing who to speak with and meet with and to network and navigate through is vital. It's necessary. It's crucial that you have these relationships and that they're partnerships that go back and forth. You know, the Port of Clarkston, what is it that I could help them with? The authentic experience that a lot of their guests are wanting. What can the Port of Clarkston help me with? They can help me navigate through docking times. So I can make sure that through my market research and marketing strategy that I'm reaching out to the right people at the right time. And again, without doing my market research, I wouldn't know that they were only here from the middle of March to the middle of November. So knowing that, what do? I base and I strategize other tours. That's going to be my key area. That's a very busy time for me is March through November. So what do? I make sure that I also have tours lined up for the quote unquote off season, in which we have been slammed every single month. And again, I'm just within the first 10 months of business. And, you know, I went from just having one employee, which is myself, to March 15th, I have to hire on 9 people. 9 people. That's 5 full-time and that's 5 part-time people that are being able to have access to these guests, to be able to confidently speak about their culture and to navigate through our homelands from all over the Pacific Northwest. So that's a huge deal. And this thing isn't just for the busy season. I plan on keeping these employees busy all year round from this point, and who knows what the second year is going to bring me as far as being able to advance my local community. So one of the neat things about identifying market segments is it does take time. But once you do that, the customer segments that I've identified, you know, my top few are the domestic traveler, again, the cruise boat passenger, my local community. So if you live on or near a reservation, you know, it's very unlikely that your local tribal or your local non-tribal communities fully understand some of the customs and norms that you practice as an indigenous people. You know, they want to know, they just feel like sometimes they've never been given the chance and they don't want to disrespect a culture in any way. So therefore, you offer a guided service, say to a local powwow. You offer a dinner with a Nez Perce that's open to the public. You can bring your family. And there's a lot of tribal people who are maybe, you know, descendants or they aren't tied in directly with that relationship with that tribal person, but they're thirsty and they're hungry for it. You know, their heart really desires to know more about who they come from and where they come from. So Nez Perce Tourism is able to offer, you know, not just our neighboring states, but you know, our neighbors here in Nimiipuu country about giving them insight on who we are as a people. Also, one of the things that we're going to be expanding on this year in 2020 is soliciting international guests. And so this is a huge demographic. And I was glad that Lynn selected Germany as a place point to look at more information because, you know, that industry, the Germans are highly respectable and they respect us as indigenous people. And most importantly, through market research, they want to know Nimiipuu. They want to know Chief Joseph. But look at all the other beautiful cultures and landscapes that you guys have to offer as well. So being able to look at even my own personal lineage, and I'm German from my mother's side. I'm Scottish. I'm Dutch from my mother's side. So it's going to be nice that intercultural kind of exchange when I come in contact with these guests more and more. But through a partnership in my market research, I've been working with the Red Lion Hotel here in Lewiston, and they're also a gateway to Hells Canyon. So of course, we need to look at statistics and how many travelers are making it up to Hells Canyon, because that's obviously one of the big attractions here in the LC Valley. And so moving on, corporations and businesses are also a market segment that I'm reaching. And one of the ways we can do that is living so close to you could say a reservation or a Native American tribe. In this diverse world, there's also a big need for a cultural sensitivity and being able to position a curriculum that'll help corporate and businesses understand what sensitivity is, and also incorporate team building inside of these organizations and these corporations. But not only that, a lot of them are looking at, for example, I'm working on a amplified storytelling video series right now with DAS Connection in Clarkston, Washington, and their whole company came and took a jet boat tour this summer. And I was very thankful for the opportunity for a newer business in the area to take advantage of services within the community. And they really liked how Nez Perce Tourism was able to share their story through narrative from a perspective that they've never heard, but that they were still able to connect to. And so a couple months passed by, and they offered me a job to come and help them share their story, share their amplified storytelling through the very technical services that they offer for first responders. So, you're always going to be an ambassador for what it is you're representing. I'm always going to be an ambassador for Nimiipuu people. So I'm a walking billboard wherever I go. And I hope that making sure that I create these lasting partnerships and these legacy moments with people will settle with them and they'll want to come back. And so that's just another example of corporation and businesses and you making sure that you're doing a good job in the services that you offer. If you find out that guests are not coming back for a second booking, or you don't get feedback at all, you might want to question yourself, most importantly, your customer, and ask why. Did you enjoy the stay? Send out a follow-up survey and things like that, so you can always better your product. When we first started out with Nez Perce Tourism, with You Hear the Echoes of Our Ancestors jet boat tour, our narrative wasn't as strong as it is now. We have curriculum-based learning that you have to take in order to be a guide, and so some of the same 6 stops from here to Buffalo Eddy are the same, and the same message is being conveyed, but it could be from a different guide. So I have to make sure through Nez Perce Tourism that my message is similar, is the same, and that my guests are getting the same experience each time. Also, another one of my market segments is institution and education. So no matter where you're at in this world, you have preschool, grade school, junior high, high school, college levels all around you. You have to have something there. A lot of these folks are looking at Indigenous learning and learning from the Indigenous people of the landscape they're visiting on. And so it's neat that we can tap into these resources. For example, this Thursday, the Lewis and Clark State College nursing program called Nez Perce Tourism and want us to come in and not talk about medicines that you would think in the nursing program. They just want to gain insight on Nez Perce 101. They know whose land that they're on, they're visiting, they're occupying, but they want to make sure that they're respecting that landscape the best way they know how. So what better thing to do than to bring in the people of the land? And so myself and I have a hand drummer, we're going to go in and give a co-presentation. And one of the things that I've noticed in my area in particularly is a lot of these folks expect tribal knowledge to be shared at no cost. And that's not something that I agree with. There are some situations in which Nez Perce Tourism, of course, offers, free of charge or no cost to you presentations, but we also want to make sure that they understand that this knowledge is passed down through thousands of years of oral histories and that you can't find that anywhere. So I really want to start creating this norm. Maybe it's not, a huge $500 stipend for an hour long, but, cover travel costs. A lot of the times for me, my presenters, they're retired veterans. their elders, their college students in between college, all of these things to make sure that they're being rewarded for knowing and spending the time in their culture and their tradition. And not only making sure that they're rewarded, but make sure that that information is respected. And so those are just some examples of identifying market segments within Nimiipuu country. And so one of the thing is with market research, I want to make sure that you understand that it lowers business risk. It helps you with a solid game plan and a roadmap to success. And again, I'm going to say it, it's time consuming, it's nitpicky, but it's so worth it in the end to make sure that you put a good amount of time for market research. And it's not that you have to do it every day, but allocate, one day a week to really go and look at, what are some of the travel trends. Identify who those market segments are. Make sure you have a strategic plan for each market segment and potentially a business partner for each. But it'll also help you with your marketing plan. So not all of my marketing segment marketing plans are the same. I'm not going to go and advertise to the corporations like I am the jet boat company. It's going to be a little bit different. So I need to make sure that those things are fine tuned. And one of the other things that I wanted to mention is the international guest. So Lynn popped up a screen on international visitors, and I want you to know the significance of your local travel corridors. For example, here in Nimiipuu country, there's just two local travel corridors that I would like to talk about, and one of them is the Seattle to Yellowstone corridor. Now, if you look at it from an international standpoint, and you've done your market research, you'll understand that the key airline and places that they stop at is, for me, in Nimiipuu country, for international travelers, is Salt Lake and or Seattle. So I'll know that I'm going to need to access the Seattle to Yellowstone or Salt Lake corridor, and that typically takes about 2.5 weeks to navigate through if you drive it, and that's typically what people do. So how can I, through market research and marketing, strategize how to get some of these families, some of these motor coach, and motor coach is a big market, and that's neat because you can tap into the tour operators who will basically book it for you. They just need a product to book, and a lot of them again are looking for that authenticity. And so again, thank you for joining us today for our 5th webinar series of 12. And 2 Tuesdays from now is the typical day that we have them on. We are going to be talking about financial planning, and that's for session 6. And that's on February 18th, the same time at noon. So again, session 6 is financial planning on February 18th. And in this webinar session, you will learn how to determine a startup budget for your tourism business and explore the funding resources that exist to help. It's really neat because if you position this right, you'll already have your business plan lined up. You'll have your partners ready to go. You'll have your collaborators. You'll be able to utilize these webinar series. The Acorn Project has great information not only on tourism, but Airbnbs and TripAdvisor and all of these neat things that you can tap into. So whenever you're ready to start your opening date, your grand opening, you will feel so solid in your approach to what you're going to do. I know that as soon as God deposited this this idea in my mind, I literally just had to keep shooting for it and rooting for it and finding those solid mentors that will help us along the way. But I did want to commend the IDRS Acorn Project for their vision to network with the Nez Perce Tourism and other entrepreneurs in Indian country to help us share our story and what worked for us. Because I know that, hearing Jazz's story, hearing the Coeur d'Alene tribe tourism story, hearing Kermit Mankiller's story, hearing all of these other stories will help put into perspective how you can be more successful in your own story for your own community. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you all will tune in on Tuesday, February 18th at noon, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you, and best luck on your entrepreneurship endeavors. Thank you very much. Have a good day.